Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. We're here to do the do, and this is going to be a video about the sun hitting its conjunction with Saturn. Saturn is in Aquarius, a masculine energy. The sun is in Aquarius, a masculine energy and a masculine planet. This is Pernell, your AstroShaman. All right, we are here generating a world of harmony, leveraging human-designed astrology. I'm going to help you understand a couple of the connections from human design today with astrology, and a lot of the focus will actually be on the ego gate or the heart center. Okay. Now, this really matters because the sun is really where we find our individuality. You know, is where we separate ourselves from another, which is why Aries is the exaltation, because Aries is Yahweh, or I am. And the sun conjunct Saturn is a Yahweh type energy. It's a God type energy. The sun can represent God. It can represent fatherly figures. It always has a connection with the Father. And that connection that we have with our Father is very important. But oftentimes it is something that feels like we never got the praise or attention which Saturn wants. In a sense, it wants the praise for its and wants to be recognized. We usually don't ever get that from the father in a traditional household. So what this can look like in application is like, you know, a child is stuck on its mother's bosom, and the child is like connected to the mom in a way that a child can never be connected to the father, and the father leaves the home and traditionally and goes to work and then comes back. Now, to a child, the father is literally evaporating from existence. The father is here one moment and he's not here the next. And it's really interesting because I started understanding this sun conjunct Saturn better when I got a kitten. Like I literally have a kitten, and I can feel my own childhood like going through a renewal, a rebirth, if you will, where I'm changing my mind. Now, the reason I say changing my mind is this conjunction happened at 27 degrees. 27 degrees is the most evolved consciousness of Gemini. Gemini is what I think. So Gemini is a mutable symbol. Mutable signs change things, change thoughts, change concepts, and creatively deal with this conjunction of Saturn and Sun. So, you know, the sun will represent a lot of times like our spiritual connection. Depending on who you're talking to, you'll hear a lot of people say that the sun is actually a portal to alternate dimensions, alternate realities, or to the God self. And, you know, when you tap into the God self, you can travel, you can explore, you can experiment, and you can feel a connection to I am, or Yahweh, or God. So the reason I wanted to kind of break some of this down is this Sun-Saturn conjunction, it can be really tough. If you have any aspects to your sun, I want you to drop it in a chat. Like for me, for example, like my sun is squaring my Saturn, and my sun is squaring my Jupiter. Now, if you only have a Sun-Saturn aspect, any line, okay, especially an opposition going straight across 180 degrees or 90 degrees for that square, what can happen a lot of times is this will make a highly professional person who continues to succeed and excel in the workspace. Like they literally are just going to be known. Now, the difficulty with this conjunction or with any kind of aspect Sun to Saturn is that they'll be known, but they're a lot of times covering their insecurities for praise through their excellence. So this is the person that will wear 50 medals, you know, like a general in the army, wear 50 medals. It's like, well, these 50 medals show the world that I'm an accomplished person. But internally, there's an inner critic that is literally eating them up, especially in the mind at this conjunction of 27 degrees of Gemini. It's eating their mind up. The thoughts that they have of themselves are hypercritical to the point where they really don't love themselves. They really seek love from an external source. And the best I can explain this is like I have a gate 10 in human design, for example. If you have gate 10 in human design, drop it in the chat. And gate 10 in human design, it's this gate of Capricorn, okay? It's a Capricorn energy, Saturn related. Capricorn is domain in Saturn. And you know, you go through this basically two main phases. If you get through the two main phases, 444 on screen, support and building something emotionally sound. You're either going to really hate yourself, you're going to have so much hate, so much disgust for yourself, or you're going to love yourself to a point where other people will begin to hate you, because it's like, how could one love themselves so much? And you can only love yourself so much when you internally build and support the emotions that says, you know, I am willing to see the relationship with my father differently. This is tough daddy love type transit. This is a tough daddy love placement where, you know, the father, I see this with me and my cat, like I said, you know, now the father has to go off and make some chicken, has to make some bread, has to make some money. You know, the father has to go and secure the resources. He is pressured to make sure that the family is secured in a way that the child is not fully understanding how to be receptive to this form of stabilizing love. And what the child knows is that I'm sucking on my mother's bosom, that my mom is always there, that when I cut myself, my mom is there, that when I go through a heartbreak, my mom is there. But my dad seems to always be somewhere not where I need him. And what this does is, this Sun-Saturn conjunction, it will really put us in a position where we truly struggle with self-love. We struggle with the inner critic, you know, an inner dialogue that just says that you're not enough, and that no matter what you do, no matter how much you achieve, that it is just never going to be enough. This the kind of thing where, you know, you come home and you're like, Dad, I made the team. And, you know, your dad's like, oh, cool. And then you just feel like, oh, Dad doesn't care. And it's like, that's just simply not true. It's your personal perception. And so a lot of what this conjunction would reveal is, how do we align our thoughts with that of God, the God within us, a spiritual connection? Like I said, the sun, you know, think about Aries exalted in the sun. Leo, first off, is a channel type energy, domain in the sun. Leo channels energy, all right? It channels spirit, it channels source energy, which is why it's exalted in Neptune, okay? The place in the home of spirituality, all right? And so that's the sun, but Aries is exalted there. Why? Because Aries is starting from a part of Pisces. And that's all one. Pisces is the understanding of we are all one, which is why it has all 12 zodiacs within it, all right? But Aries has enough power, enough force to be the first and the only, essentially, to separate from the single organism, being God, and say, look, I am a division, I am a part of God myself. I am Yahweh. Right? So what I'm saying is this conjunction really will, in a sense, promote you. I don't feel like it's so much of a force, but there is a force because of it's happening in Aquarius. And Aquarius is a lot of pressure type. It's pressurized thoughts, it's pressurized concepts, and it's pressurized needs to secure resources, to continuously be a sustainable, aka fixed energy, to be a sustainable source of fuel, a sustainable source of survival. And so when you put the sun in Aquarius as well as Saturn in Aquarius, you know, we're always going to be hungry. And what I feel like is important is, and even potentially advisable, to realize that the hunger that your father gave you in your career, and, you know, you seeking love within yourself in a pressurized manner, like you just want to love yourself more and more and more and more and more, where you're like, you know, you have to go through situations where you allow guys to ghost you, for example. Shout out to you, you know, I got you, baby girl. You know, you allow guys to ghost you. And it's like, well, what's happening a lot of that in that space is you're repeating this guy ghosting you is just repeating that, okay, you projected your inner disciplines onto this guy. Right? A lot of times when you have an opposition or a square, this person will project their inner disciplines, the way they need to discipline themselves to emotionally secure, you know, themselves, literally to, through that, connect with their sensitivities that says, I can rest, that says, I am worthy, that says X, Y, and Z. A lot of times this energy will, especially when it's squaring or in opposition. Okay, so understand that this transit happening is a conjunction. The conjunction is just kind of helping us align our thoughts with what has always been. Okay, what is, just objectively. But if you have this as a square or opposition, like let's say myself, it took me a lot of time to recognize that this is the kind of energy that makes you want to prove yourself. But it's like, what are you trying to prove exactly? And so beyond what are you trying to prove, it will walk into that space, like I was saying before. A lot of times this is women trying to date older men. Okay, Saturn is a elderly, fatherly type. It's an older type of energy, and the sun is more fatherly. And so this will equate to dating older men. And a lot of times, if a woman has not dealt with, their inner needs to feel love and to be recognized as a lovable person, a lovable creature, this can turn into her projecting her inner needs, her inner desires onto that older male and kind of passing those on. And then when he decides to be the authoritarian and in a sense discipline her, which is what she gave him the keys to do, she oftentimes does not like that. I don't even like to say this, but it's simply true in a lot of examples. I'm not going to say every single example, but women do not like to be held accountable. When you hold a woman accountable, she really hates it a lot of times, more often in my personal opinion in the modern society than not. More often than not, she hates to be held accountable. When she finds a man strong enough, which she claims she wants, she finally gets him, she oftentimes is destroying that exact person. Or projecting those needs onto that person where she can't embrace what is the lesson here. And the lesson here is to love yourself. That is ultimately the lesson. So I want to take a moment to look in here and see if there's anything really important on this. I took a couple, y'all know me, I'm a student of life forever. My highlighter just fell out. Dealing with a loaded perceptual filter is to imagine an alternative interpretations for motivations of, the father's behavior. So it's like when you didn't necessarily get that attention from the father, like try to think about, what, because if you have a square in opposition specifically, you will oftentimes think like something more on the negative, pessimistic side about what the father was doing or how he really didn't love you or appreciate you in X, Y, and Z. But what is acting with this type of transit is like, and it's highly advisable because it's going to pay off for you not trying to prove yourself, and as well as stop projecting onto others and take care of where you need to discipline. Saturn is discipline. Understand that, the relationship with a Saturn and Sun dynamic, the relationship is hella karmic. This relationship with your father is karmic. So me, for example, I have a square and to both my Jupiter and my freaking Saturn, and it's like that relationship is karmic. It's me as a child helping my father to evolve and progress through his karma, and vice versa. And that's just by me being me, especially if I take my individuation. It's the sun, okay? The sun exalted. If I individualize and don't choose this path. The example that I like to use in this instance is, when I was 16 or so, like I got kicked out of my house first, and it was like, oh crap. And that started leading towards me wanting to go to the military. Now, my father went to the military. My father's in the military for about 25 years. Thank you, Pops, for everything you've done. Thank you for all the terrors and the wars and the deaths and the bombings. I mean, it's traumatic as fuck, right? And so it's like, to be able to me, that's what did it for me. Me switching my mind, in a sense, at a point of life and realizing I don't really want to go to the military. I'm going to fall into a path of trying to prove myself. Now, if I look back at human design, my heart center or my ego center is undefined. I have no gates. So this is literally me with a conjunction in astrology, with a square in astrology that says you're going to be driven to want to prove yourself. And then this is human design saying you have nothing to prove to yourself. So what I'm saying in the moment is like, take time to, one, potentially get some one-on-one reading with me, all right, if you want to dig deeper into this, or two, join my membership. But take time to start realizing that no one system is all-encompassing. And even though it can be, you're likely going to die. Time will outlive you before you can get that much, because you, in my personal opinion, should continue to experience life and realize how blessed and fruitful life is. And if you are doing that, then you're likely not studying all day, every day, and only in a book. You're applying the information. And Saturn is saying part of that discipline is like, are you applying what you learned and heard and felt deep in your heart center from God? The message from God. This is a lot of godly. The sun is so underrated. Like, I feel like when people discover astrology, they forget that the sun is the most powerful thing in our solar system. It's like, don't underestimate the sun. Your sun sign matters, okay? Yeah, your moon matters, and the moon matters in a lot of ways more than the sun sometimes in some instances, but it matters what you are looking at. You feel me? So, your Mercury could be more important in a moment depending on what you're looking at, right? I'm looking at delegating work, and one of the things I looked for is talking to this person. I'm like, where's your Mercury at? Because I want to understand her mind. I want to understand her mind as I delegate. And then I next ask, where's your Mars? Because I want to understand her ethics. I want to understand her work ethics. I cared less about her sun in that instance, but it doesn't mean that the sun is any less powerful. So I hope the army example gave you some real personal insight on how you could potentially apply it to your life. Of like, the key with this is I would have never outranked my father. You know what I'm saying? Like, first off, bare minimum, I would have had to do 25 years in the military, in the armed forces. So I'm 16, you add 25, that's already older than what I am right now. I think, I don't know. I'm pretty sure that's older than what I am right now. So I would have still been living a life trying to prove myself on a path that I would have failed my karmic and spiritual mission here as a life path 11, as a 5-1 generator. I would have failed as the heretic because I would have been a soldier. Likely finally would have probably became a leader, but I would have never been satisfied. That's my point. Instead of me choosing that path that took me off the beaten road, and eventually I did all kinds of things in so many different countries. And so the irony of this is like, you know, this is not something to reject. This is my key, because Saturn type energy can really be neglectful and want to reject as a modality of insecurity, because this filter, this lens that we looked at through our father, and a lot of times this transit is asking us to look at our father with a new lens, and a lens of love. See the father through a lens of love. And we have that possibility because all the Pisces energy in the sky. Love is lost from the spiritual equation. Little self-love, little self-appreciation. And it says this attitude impinges on the environment, invoking events that confirm the inner picture. And I've seen this within myself for so long. You know, it's like I had so many negative thoughts. Like I said, this happened at 27 degrees of Gemini. It's our thoughts, our personal thoughts, the ones that we don't even have to share with anybody else. We can, but we don't have to. There's a light and dark side to Gemini. And it's like, you know, I had these thoughts, and I attracted people, women that I dated, who didn't love themselves. But it was showing me how I was not loving myself. And it's like, that's not so far-fetched. We all have heard that relationships are a mirror. And that was the simplicity. And then as I began to really work on that and love myself, on the environment I impinged around me was love. And if you look at the top of my Instagram thing right now, not my Instagram, look at the top of my YouTube, on my homepage, it says love strong. And it's like, this is who I am. I'm a very strong and passionate lover. But I had to really deal with and address, well, what was keeping me from loving passionately? What was keeping me from loving myself? And a lot of that is, the more I love myself, the more I get projected onto, because literally in my human design, I'm a 5. This is like the most projected line. Like, people project their insecurities on me. Even as a Scorpio rising, they project their insecurities on me and they, hey, save me, essentially. And the more I decide to press accept or deny, more likely deny, on that projection, this becomes the moment when they hate me. But it's because they're projecting in the first place, which is why it failed. Now, it wouldn't fail for them if I said yes on the projection. You see how that works? Because this is a lot of projection type energy. The sun is a masculine energy. Masculines project. Aquarius is masculine. It projects outwardly. And that way, as long as we are projecting outwardly, guess what? We don't have to deal with the inward. Or so we would like to believe. Because this conjunction is showing us that that's not true. All right, let me give you some closing notes. Hit the thumbs up, please, if you're rocking with this message. Let me know what your transits look like. Let me know if you want some one-on-one time with me, or join my membership. We meet again February 19th this weekend. So it says there's a tendency to deny the inner discipline that Saturn demands as it projects it onto others. Boom. Okay, great. We oftentimes get blamed, the person we're projecting on often gets blamed for being the authoritarian. Like, you know, I was incarnated to put limitations on people. So it's like, this is one of the blames. Like, when I put the limit and I say no, man, people turn into demons sometimes. The inner judge who prefers chastisement to encouragement. So there's the energy where, like, when you find somebody that finally wants to love you, and I've seen this in my life, when I find somebody that finally wants to love me, it becomes very difficult to accept praise, to accept encouragement, to accept love. And the thing with this is like, as I kept giving love outwardly, it always turned back and smacked me in the face. Why? Because I was not loving myself at certain phases and stages in my life. And as a part of that, as long as I was not willing to receive love, which is what any hard aspects can do in this, as long as I was not willing to receive love, And I just kept giving love. I was giving from an empty cup. I was giving from a cup that was going to always shatter. You feel me? But if that cup was filled up within me, even if it shattered, guess what? It would have been a bliss of ecstasy and joy. I would have just been like Baywatch, you know, Pamela Anderson on moving my hair. Can't believe I just said her name. Man, yo, I just feel like I just gotta say, like, loosen up, you know? Just unpucker your butt, all right? Like, just chill out. Love life. All right. So a couple closing notes. You know, Saturn in general likes to be effective. And so it says, you know, this inner judge may believe that it is more effective to goad into self-improvement, but it's very ineffective, okay? Goad, G-O-A-D. And, you know, Saturn likes to be effective. So that's a key note. There would be an inner picture, inner dialogue, inner feeling. Saturn's sun tries to escape, and that's the projection, basically. And so, you know, you want to focus on the inner judge, vocalizing the inner critic, and as accessing the deep-rooted body sensations. So for me, what this was like, before I begin to move my body, and I mean like through animal flow, like, right? Like, I was an exercise physiologist. I worked in the gym. If you look at old pictures of me, I'm this freaking big-ass buff dude that when people met me in real life, they're like, yo, I can't believe, like, you look like this. And this is like, yeah, like the internet be making people think and look, people be looking larger than life sometimes, you know what I mean? But a lot of that was me shamming, creating this external illusion of being tougher than what I was, you know, or using accolades, like I gave the example with the medals, or I got all these degrees, oh, look at my status in my career, you know, I'm top executive, I know all these famous people. And it's like, that is us really hiding our insecurities and not allowing us to dig deep to the roots, aka externalizing, rather than embracing what internally is being asked of us, required to live an effective life of love, an effective life where we get to experience love at a deep level. So the finishing notes on this is, what works for these people essentially is to assume the role of responsibility. Okay, that way stop projecting that responsibility outward and achieve long-term goals, but through grit and determination. That's my time. But achieve long-term goals through grit and determination. What's cathartic for these people is to admit secretly that they are convinced that they are inferior, and that the structures for excellence they built around them will basically be seen through, okay, like a glass mirror. So that's what I got for you, okay? Definitely, again, hit the thumbs up, hit the likes button. I'm all up in your face, baby. I love you. This is like the tough daddy love placement. You know, when I look at it at the end of the day, like I said, do your best to change what your image of your father was, and realize that, you know, you were programmed to believe he was somebody that he never was from such a young age, where he was out there getting it for you. And, you know, it should not go unchecked. Don't believe the simplicity of, you know, let's say if a woman was in her shadow, she's manipulative. And it's not that hard to look at our mothers as manipulative creatures. Like, everybody knows their mom has some manipulative qualities. Now, again, the question is, what's being manipulated and why? And how did the father get neglected in that process for his role? As we could start seeing that, you know, especially if you see your mother still has a good relationship with her father, or always still talks well about him, realize that our parents were kids once, and they didn't always get to live out their lives, and they had responsibilities sometimes before they were ready, and then they had children, and sometimes parents do not mature while raising children. So as a part of that, try to be compassionate and gentle with whatever you discover, because it should start becoming clear and into the light very soon. I love you. I appreciate you. As you do that, life is going to open up like a box of chocolate. You'll never know what you get next. Hit the thumbs up. This is your AstroShaman, Pernell Bobby. We are here generating a world of harmony, leveraging human designed astrology.